Is weird, odd, strange, or just plain bizarre is really your cup of tea? Then, the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast will give you that fix. Can't believe it? Well, listen for yourself as we deliver the strangest news you definitely won't find on CNN or Fox. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the GSMC Weird News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Colleen, and let's just get into the weird news. So, I was thinking about it, and I was like, weird news for this week. What should we do? I love movies. Lots of people love movies. I love movies. I work in movies. I just love watching movies. I love all sorts of stuff that goes with movies. So I thought, let's get some weird movie facts, and then maybe I'll give you guys a little bit of weird movies that I enjoy, and also weird movies maybe not do enjoy. So let's get into these first weird movie facts. So, when I was looking for these weird movie facts, a lot of them were ones that pretty much everybody knows, but I tried to find ones that were a little more obscure, and ones that I thought were a little weirder, and things that you could tell your friends when you're gonna be like, hey, let's watch this movie. You're like, well, let me tell you. So, okay, my first weird movie fact is that Psycho, the movie Psycho, was the first film to ever feature a toilet flushing. Now, I thought this was really weird. Like, it's kind of one of those things that you never think about, like, oh, there was never a toilet flushing in any other movie before Psycho. Like, it's kind of nuts to think about. But also, I guess it makes sense because, you know, they're not trying to bring up, you know, toilet flushing. It's not like a key thing in movies, but I guess it can be. So I thought it was really weird that that was the first movie that it was actually ever in. So we'll just get right on to the next one and go with two that are kind of similar in a way. So, the film Ratatouille. Love the movie, super cute. I'm not a fan of Ratatouille as a food. Like, not a fan. Just because I'm not the biggest vegetable person, even though I should eat way more vegetables, but I don't. I'm a child that's an adult, like, straight out. But I love the movie, super cute, good movie, but I found this fact really weird, but after the film was released, after Ratatouille was released, pet rat sales went up by 50%. 50%. That's ridiculous. And it was like a whole thing. It went up 50%, and then it was kind of like parents were assuring the pet, like, store people that, oh, they'll take care of it and this and that. Like, that's kind of terrifying to me. I've never had a pet rat. I had a pet ferret. Loved him. He passed away this year, and because he was really old and he was very sweet. But I've known people that have rats, and they're a lot of work. I mean, any sort of animal that's kind of along those lines, mouse, rat. I've had guinea pigs and hamsters and that kind of thing. They're a lot more difficult to take care of than you think about when you're buying it for your kid. I really think they're more of a pet that you should go with as an adult, but I think it's really strange that, oh, Ratatouille comes out. I want a Ratatouille. I was watching the Key and Peele, that was Jordan Peele and Keegan-Michael Key's movie. TV show that they did together on Comedy Central for a while. But I love that show, and I rewatch it all the time. And they do an episode, like a little sketch that's kind of like that. They're like, the guy's like, I have a Ratatouille, man, and it makes like a sandwich, but there's like, it's like partially bitten and all that stuff. Like, it's funny, but that's kind of what it makes me think of. Like, everybody wants a Ratatouille. Your rat's not going to cook you food. There are really sweet animals and great pets from what I hear. So they are good pets to have, really sweet as long as you take care of them. But I just think it's absurd that the sales went up 50% because the movie came out. I hope all those rats were okay and taken care of very well and not just like, oh, we're done with it, put it outside kind of thing. Like, you can't do that. But along the line of like animal movies and animals, so Finding Nemo. Everybody knows Finding Nemo. Everybody loved that movie. Everybody knows. But apparently the population of clownfish dropped by 75% after Finding Nemo came out. In Australia, like in the Australia area specifically, from what I saw. I couldn't get a lot more information on this, but I am just mind blown that this is a thing. That 75% of the clownfish population dropped. There wasn't a real sign for what it was. I assume that they're thinking that it was, you know, from people like wanting clownfish and so lots of whatever, but I don't know. That's kind of a ridiculous fact, whether it's related or not to the actual movie. It's kind of crazy that it dropped by 75% like right after this movie came out. I don't know. Real strange. Really strange. Let's pull it out to a very old movie called The Wizard of Oz. Have you seen it? I assume so. Everybody's seen The Wizard of Oz. Love The Wizard of Oz. Loved it as a kid. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that went on the set of Wizard of Oz and all that stuff, and I'm not going to go into any of the dark theories or dark things that they say happened on the set or how they were treated or anything. No, I want to keep this light. And I want to talk about, like, this is still kind of gross, but it's kind of fascinating that the snow that was used in The Wizard of Oz is asbestos. Okay, it's disgusting, but at the same time, I found out that asbestos was a popular decoration for Christmas as snow in the US and Europe during that time. So it's not, like, it's gross now that you know, like, you're like, oh, asbestos, what? But it's the fact that, it's not, you know, it wasn't known that it was bad and it was this. It was like, oh, this is just a Christmas decoration or this and that, you know? So it's not like it was a bad thing. I mean, it is a bad thing, but it's not like it was a terrible thing that, you know, they did this. But it was a weird fact that I thought, because it's not something you would think when you're watching the movie that, oh, the snow is asbestos, you know? But I guess it was also popular. It was just a popular decoration. And that's kind of how things go anyway. It's just, you know, you kind of find out things are bad as you're getting older. You know, they had mercury thermometers and stuff. So it's not like, it's not a bad fact. It's not a bad thing. It's just interesting. I thought it was interesting. Love that movie. Even if there are some bad things said about it here and there, whatever, there is about everything nowadays. I don't know. These are some of the, like, I guess kind of weirder facts, or like lighter on the weird side facts that I found, except for the asbestos one, because that one's just real strange. But I think that they could be helpful in a conversation with friends. Like, for real. You could just be like, hey, do you know Psycho was the first movie to feature a toilet? Like, that's kind of fun. I don't know. I love facts like this. Movies are my favorite, like I said before. Don't get pets because they're in a movie. Like, don't do that. Do your research if you're gonna, like, get a pet in the first place. Like I said, I haven't had a rat, but don't buy a rat because you think it's gonna be a Ratatouille, because it's not gonna make you a 5-star meal. Your rat is not gonna make you a 5-star meal. I promise you that. And if it does, that's amazing, and the world needs to know. How did your rat make you a 5-star meal? I don't know. Don't do that. I hate that. Don't buy a fish or a rat or something because you see it in a movie. Oh, it's cute. It talks in the movie. It's not the same thing. If your kid really wants one, get a plushie or a toy or something like that. Just do that. Okay. Let's take a quick break, and when we get back, I'm going to talk about some more weird facts about movies that I found. We will see you after the break.
Get Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back to the GSMC Weird News Podcast. Now, before the break, we were talking about weird movie facts. We talked about Psycho, we talked about Ratatouille, we talked about Finding Nemo, and we also talked about The Wizard of Oz. Now, let's bring it on to one of my absolutely favorite movie franchises, which is Jurassic Park. Love Jurassic Park. Love the Jurassic Parks, love the Jurassic World. The only one that I don't really love is 3, but I mean, to each their own. Love Jurassic Park. Also love Jeff Goldblum. He's amazing. So this fact I found kind of interesting because it's something also you don't think about. So the raptor sounds in Jurassic Park are a mixture of tortoises mating with horses breathing and geese hissing. What? I mean, these sound people who make sounds for animals that, you know, don't usually make sounds, or monsters or whatnot, are amazing because they're really meshing sounds together to make these, like, incredible, phenomenal, well-known sounds. Like the raptors in Jurassic Park, you know that sound. You know it's a raptor when you hear it, you know, or like Godzilla, you know that's Godzilla, you know that's his sound, but it's these people that have taken all this time to put together these noises to make something that they think, and obviously are very well at doing, know that is gonna be a great sound for these animals that they've never heard before. So, I love Jurassic Park, and I love the raptors, and I've never heard a tortoise mating or geese hissing. Actually, no, I think I might have heard a geese hissing, like, once. I've heard horses breathing. Love horses. Love them. But I guess I didn't even think that that was possible to mix all those sounds together to make the sound that the raptors are making. It's kind of insane, but also, like, super awesome. That's kind of like the coolest thing, and you could tell, like, this is definitely a good fact to, like, tell your friends when you're gonna go see Jurassic Park movies or whatever, or if you're gonna, I don't know, if you're watching Jurassic Park or something. It's just a good fact. It's funny, and I like it, and I enjoy it. Now, let's talk about the most profitable film of all time. Now, this blew my mind. I love movies, and I, on occasion, keep up with how they've done in the box office and whatnot, but you don't really think about what they cost to make. You know, you don't think about what they cost to make and if they're profiting well off of that, which most of them are, don't get me wrong. But I guess the most profitable movie, this just blows my mind, by the way, of all time is Paranormal Activity. Now, I love horror movies. I love a good horror movie, let me tell you. I absolutely love horror movies. They're my thing. They're my favorite. But I'm not a fan of the Paranormal Activity line series. I don't know what you want to call that. Like, the multiple Paranormal Activities. I'm just not a fan. That's me. Another weird fact, Paranormal Activity actually ripped off a movie called Paranormal Entity, which I like way better. I found that out and I was like, no way, and I went and watched Paranormal Entity and I like it so much better. But still, that's a little bonus fact for you. But, so, they're the most profitable movie of all time. So, let's talk costs. Their cost to make this movie was about $60,000. But then another $400,000 to market it. And then in total, they brought in $89 million. So they were very profitable. You don't think about that stuff, that it took $60,000 to make, but also it took more to market, which is insane. Absolutely insane. Like, it takes $400,000 to market it. But I guess that's going to help you in the long run, since your marketing is going to bring people in. Your advertising and be like, oh, I want to see that movie kind of thing, you know? So I guess it makes sense that it's that much, but it's kind of crazy that they spent less to make the movie than they did to market the movie. But they did come out, obviously, very profitable, since they are the most profitable film of all time, which is still just mind-blowing to me. Now let's go to another horror movie. I love this horror movie. So the horror movie I'm talking about is not the Psycho we talked about from the beginning, but I'm talking American Psycho. And apparently it was inspired by Tom Cruise. Like, the whole movie and him was inspired. Now, Christian Bale played the main character in American Psycho, and not Tom Cruise. But I guess the director said that he did this movie, or like the character, based on Tom Cruise because of how nice he was, but how wide his eyes were, and how like intensely nice he was, which I think is kind of crazy because that movie is, for lack of a better word, psycho. Oh, I'm terrible. But, so, it's, you know, it's kind of weird that this movie was based off of somebody else. And I don't know. American Psycho 2 is weird. Don't watch that one. I mean, you could. It's got Mila Kunis in it. Really strange, but a good movie. Let's move on. So let's talk about The Matrix. This one kind of threw me for a loop. And the reason it threw me for a loop is the fact that, so one of the most popular things that you see when it comes to The Matrix is those, the raining down code. And it's very popular. It's on t-shirts. It's all over the internet. People use it for everything. Very popular. But the weird thing is that the actual code that you're seeing from The Matrix is just, like text from a sushi cookbook. So the director had this sushi cookbook, and he basically just photocopied a bunch of pieces of it, and they used that as the code in The Matrix, which is, what? So everybody who's wearing a t-shirt with the Matrix code on it just straight has, like, cookbook recipes or sushi recipes or whatever on their shirts, which is so funny. Now, let me give you a little extra fun fact about The Matrix. This one I knew before I looked for a lot of these. So, I love anime. Lots of people love anime. I love Ghost in a Shell. It is probably one of my absolute favorite animes. Now, The Matrix actually ripped off, like, scenes from Ghost in the Shell, and they did it very openly and said, we wanted this scene almost verbatim. So there are scenes in Ghost in the Shell that you can put next to scenes from The Matrix, and they're identical. And it's because he wanted to give that, like, almost animated feel, almost Ghost in the Shell-esque feel from these specific scenes while, you know, making this movie. And he was very open with it, and like, yeah, I made this, you know, like, shot by shot exactly the same. I'll have to find those and put them on the Twitter or the Facebook for the weird news, because I am so curious. Like, it's so weird. It's so interesting, and I really want you guys to see it because it's almost mind-blowing at how similar they are right next to each other. Like, it's crazy. And for the record, Ghost in the Shell did come out before The Matrix, obviously. Just so you know. So they did, you know, he did say that they ripped it off verbatim because he basically just wanted those scenes in his movie, but not like the exact same scene, but not in the same context, which I think is actually really kind of strange, but I mean, to each their own. When it comes to that kind of stuff, I wouldn't rip off something verbatim unless I was, doing it, but I don't know. Oh, I have a last fun fact for you on this from Ghost in the Shell, the movie with Scarlett Johansson. First off, love it. I love Ghost in the Shell, the anime, the movies, the animated movies, and I love this movie. And I love Scarlett Johansson as Motoko. She's great. Absolutely great. But, so, this is the coolest thing. The suit that she wears that looks like her skin, that it almost looks like she's naked, but she's not, is an actual suit and not animated on her. When you look at it in the movie, it looks like it's totally animated on her, but it's not. It is the first full silicone suit, like full body silicone suit ever made, and for her. And it was 3D printed, which is crazy. I think that is the coolest thing. One of the coolest things. I want to make one of those. It's so insane. Because when I saw the trailers originally, I thought they had animated her like that. But it's a full suit. That's absolutely crazy. It's an actual suit. Go look it up. You know what? I'll put that on my Twitter along with a few other things on the Twitter so you guys can see it, maybe on the Facebook as well, where you can reach us at GSMC_weird news. Now, I'm going to take a quick break, and when we come back, let's talk some more weird movie facts.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back to the GSMC Weird News Podcast, and before the break we were talking about some weird movie facts, and I want to bring some more weird movie facts to you. So, let's talk about Disney. Now, Disney wanted to be edgy way back when. They were like, we're going to be super edgy, and so they decided to make their first ever character that would break wind. And who would you guess that would be? Pumbaa. Pumbaa from The Lion King was the first ever Disney character to break wind. Now, I think this is hilarious that this is what they thought was going to make them, super edgy, but, it's not. And I mean, they've done many a edgy-ish thing since then, and then toned it back again, and then done it again, So I thought that was a fun fact. I never really thought about that, because once again, like the toilet thing that I had talked about earlier from the movie Psycho, how that was the first toilet flush ever heard on, film, it's kind of along the same lines of something that you just don't think about, but I guess he was the first Disney character to ever break wind. Now, let's talk about another family-friendly movie. You remember the movie Babe? Babe with the pigs? Or with the pig babe, I guess. Well, apparently, he may look the same throughout the entirety of the movie, but he's not. So, Babe was actually played by 48 different pigs. So it took 48 different pigs to portray Babe as they do in this movie. Which I think is kind of crazy to think about. They had to get 48 different pigs that looked very similar. Obviously, they used some different techniques throughout to change him up a bit, but they had to get 48 pigs to play Babe. Now, let's move on to Harry Potter. I thought we should throw a little Harry Potter in here because lots of people love Harry Potter. I like Harry Potter. I'm not like the biggest fan. I have many friends who are huge fans of Harry Potter. I mean, my friend had a Harry Potter wedding and it was actually phenomenal and absolutely stunning. But that's not my weird fact. So, apparently in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Daniel Radcliffe, aka Harry Potter, he had a stunt double. I mean, if you didn't know, most actors and actresses have stunt doubles. They'll do some of their stunts, but most of the time, they should be handled by a professional. But anyway, he had a stunt double named David Holmes who fractured his neck in a freak accident on the set of the Deathly Hallows and is now forever in a wheelchair, which is absolutely terrible and sad, and this poor man. But now you kind of see, too, why majority of actors and actresses use a stunt double, because these stunts a lot of times can be harmful and should be treated with the best of, with the best of the best, by the best of the best, the people who really know what they're doing, how to land a specific way, how to just do things in a specific way that isn't going to be harmful to them, or at least less harmful in this situation. So it is terrible that he's in a wheelchair for the rest of his life because of this, but now you can kind of understand why people use stunt doubles. Sometimes people are like, oh man, he didn't even do his own stunts. Well, there are reasons for that. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Let's move on to a few facts that actually aren't so much straight movie related, but they're movie related. You'll see. You'll see what I'm saying. So, the first ever woman director, her name was Alice Guy Blanche? I'm not 100% sure how to say her name, but she was the first ever woman director in 1896, and she directed more than 1,000 films, 1,000 works, and which 22 of them were feature films. That's insane. Go her. Good for her. Paving the way for women directors all the way back in 1896. For real. Good for Alice. Alice knows what she's doing. Now, let's move on to another one that I found actually really strange. Now, this is something that I never thought about. I go see movies all the time. I go to theaters all the time because, there are some movies that I really want to see when they come out, when they're in theater, that kind of thing. So, cup holders that you see in every single one of your theater chairs. It's cup holders on both sides. You don't know where to put your drink. You're like, hey, should I put it in the left or should I put it in the right? Depends on who's sitting next to me. Can I put my candy in one and my drink in the other? I don't know. But the cup holders, you think they'd be around since the theaters have always sold, beverages and whatnot. But apparently they've only been around since the 1980s. That kind of blows my mind to think that, they sell beverages. They've always sold beverages at theaters, but the cup holders have only been around since the 1980s. I mean, nowadays you get the huge popcorn and the drinks are ungodly sizes. Don't know why, but they're huge. They should be for the price that I'm paying for them, but they're absolutely huge, and if I didn't have a place to set my drink and my big popcorn, I'm gonna have an awkward arm situation going on while I'm, kind of trying to sit there and enjoy my movie, where that's kind of crazy that it was only in the 1980s, around the 1980s, when this started becoming a thing. Now, you've got all sorts of crazy things at theaters. Like, I think majority theaters around me, at least, have changed where you have to pick your seats, which I think is crazy. I liked the thrill of going in the theater and really trying to get the seat you want. But it is kind of nice because then you can pick your seats and figure out exactly where you want to sit and pick the best seats, that kind of thing. But I don't know, like, majority of theaters are doing that nowadays, which is still kind of weird to me. I'd still like to just kind of go in there and find my seat, but can be handy. Also, just the seats are getting so nice. Some of my theaters have the really nice seats that they like really recline and they're real comfortable and you've got this huge aisle in front of you so nobody's like knocking into you. I think that's great that there's like the huge aisle in front of you so no one's knocking into you, because that bothers me when you're trying to get from, you know, I gotta go to the bathroom or someone's going to the bathroom and then it's the whole, you know, wiggle and shift thing you got going on. The wiggle and shift to get in and out. But, so, I don't know, but that's become a thing now. It's not, I think it's in all my theaters now, but they're not every single specific theater that has it. I think one theater here, actually all the seats in their theater is that, but I'm not 100% sure. I mean, where I'm at, we don't get things as soon as, you know, like places like California or, you know, larger cities get them. But I want to know what your cities have in your theaters. We have a theater now that actually serves drinks, which is kind of cool. I haven't been there because it's a little far from my house, but they serve drinks now, which is interesting. What do the theaters around you have? What kind of cool stuff do you have in your theaters, or when did this happen, or have you always had these kind of things? Tweet me at GSMC_weird news. Now I'm going to take a quick break, and when we get back, I'm going to talk about some weird movies that I love, and maybe some weird facts about those movies.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and one championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
And welcome back to the GSMC Weird News Podcast. Now, before the break, we were talking about weird movie facts. Now I want to tell you about some of the weird movies that I really enjoy, that I think you guys would really enjoy. Let's talk about some Big Lebowski. Now, this is a very popular movie. I wanted to start off with something that was pretty popular, and you might have actually already seen, but I actually have a little bit of, like, some weird tidbits and facts about it that I thought you guys would enjoy. It's a movie that, funny enough, I had to watch in one of my film classes, and I was like, ooh, good thing, because I already own this movie. I love this movie. My dad is a huge fan of this movie. He's got a shirt that says The Dude on it. It's really strange when you watch it, and it takes a minute to kind of, like, understand what's going on, but it's a great piece of film, and I highly, highly, highly recommend that you guys watch it. But, so The Big Lebowski actually has a weird cult following around it, and there's like a whole, I guess, kind of religion that is based off of this. It's called Dudism, based off of the Dude, who is, of course, played by Jeff Bridges. And I love this movie. It's very strange, and the Dudism, or like the mantra I guess you live by, is just kind of like relax, chill out, don't worry about a thing kind of stuff. And this movie is really weird. It's good. It's so good, but as you watch it, it just gets weirder and weirder and weirder. But I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. Now, moving along to movies that have weird twists and are kind of, you know, in that same realm about they get weirder and weirder and weirder, and they're kind of hard to follow unless you either watch it more than once, or you really pay attention. Now, this one you have to really pay attention to, but it is so good. And this movie is called Old Boy. Now, don't watch the American Old Boy. That one came out like years after the original had come out, and The original one is a South Korean movie, so it's not in English. You gotta read subtitles. If you have a problem with that, you should still watch it. This movie is incredible. It's an incredible piece of film. It is really hard to follow. It's so hard to follow, but it is just one of my absolutely favorite movies. This is not a kid-friendly movie. Neither is The Big Lebowski. Those movies are more for adults. You should definitely watch them. You could probably watch The Big Lebowski if you're a teen, but I wouldn't watch Oldboy until you're an adult. This movie is just an amazing piece of work, but you have to pay attention. You cannot get up and walk away and then come back and know what's going on. This is one of those movies where you really gotta like sit down and watch, and hopefully you're watching on something where you can pause if you need to go to the bathroom, because you will not get it. I recommend watching this movie probably more than once. Definitely more than once. But, if you're gonna watch it once, just sit down and watch it and keep your eyes glued, because it is amazing, but you will lose a lot of the story in it. Now, I have a few, facts, like fun facts about Oldboy. Now, the original story is based off of a manga series, which I thought was kind of interesting, and the American remake actually made a lot less than the original film. So the original film made only about $700,000 for the tiny little US release that they did. But worldwide, they made a total of $14.2 million. Now, the American release, which I believe was directed by Spike Lee, made only worldwide about $4.8 million. Now, I haven't watched the American version of this movie, but I just can't bring myself to do it since the original is just so good and so amazing, and I just don't want to see it redone. That's pretty much what I have to say about that. Now, another movie that's more geared towards adults that I enjoy, definitely geared towards adults, that I really enjoy, that's real strange, is called Perfume. Now, this movie is actually pretty hard to find when you're looking for it, because there are quite a few movies called Perfume, but this movie is about a murderer who is killing women to get the perfect scent. He smelt one perfect scent, and he's trying to extract the scents from these women. Now, that sounds absolutely disgusting, but this movie is incredible. I love this movie. The story is great. The characters are amazing. The only issue I have is the end scene, and I'm not going to say a word about that, only not to give you spoilers, and two, just to tell you it is a very adult movie at the end. But this movie is incredible. It's something that a lot of people actually hadn't heard of. I've talked about it with friends before and been like, oh, have you seen Perfume? This movie is incredible. And they are like, wait, what? Like, what do you, I don't get it. You know? But I'm not, you know, it's definitely something, it's like a hidden gem. It's a little hidden gem that is probably it's a lot harder to find than Oldboy or The Big Lebowski, because they were huge films, and this one not so much, but this movie is one of my probably favorite movies that if you can find it, just go for it. Like, 100% go for it, watch it, it's incredible. It's not very gruesome as the premise or the whole story sounds like it's gonna be. It's not as gruesome as you think it is, and it is really good. So if you are kind of on the fence with like scary movies and stuff, this is not gonna be that scary horror movie. This is gonna be something that I think you really will find just a gem, an absolute gem. Honestly, one of the weirdest movies and funnest movies that I found just digging for movies. I've done a lot of that. Before Hastings went out of business, I went scavenging for all sorts of movies, and I've got a huge closet filled with movies that is way not organized and needs to be. But I am I like to find the weirdest and obscure movies, because most of the time there's movies that didn't do very well in the box office, but they are hidden gems, and they are very strange and very fun to watch, and just sometimes some of the best movies that you've never heard of. Or you may have heard one person, that being me, say, hey, you gotta watch Perfume, and you're like, what? I don't want to watch Perfume. But there are a lot of other movies that are called Perfume. Just keep that in mind if you are going to go look for this movie, that there are other movies called Perfume. And you should probably... I told you a little bit about the premise, because then if you're going to look for it, then you can find it. Because the other Perfume movies do not have the same premise. I did not tell you much about Oldboy because, like I said, the story, you really got to sit there and follow, and if I say anything, it's going to ruin it all. But I think it's amazing. The Big Lebowski is one of the best too. I wanted to get some, I guess, a little bigger names in the beginning, like Oldboy and The Big Lebowski, because we're going to ease into this weird train of movies that I definitely think that you should watch, and I'm just going to show you all these hidden gems that I have found that you will absolutely love. Now, I'm going to take a quick break, but when I get back from the break, we're going to talk about some more weird movies that I have for you that you should definitely check out. And I will see you after the break.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back to the GSMC Weird News Podcast. Now, before the break, we were talking about some weird movies that I enjoy, and I think you guys should enjoy, and some little weird facts about some of those. Now, I want to talk about some weird movies that I am absolutely in love with, and some facts about those that I think you guys would really enjoy. And I think you guys will enjoy these movies. Now, these are comedy movies, specifically Chinese comedy movies, and they are some of my favorite. Now, let's start with the one that you guys have probably seen or heard of the most, and that is Kung Fu Hustle. So, Kung Fu Hustle is hilarious, along with Shaolin Soccer, which you guys have probably seen as well. And there's an actor named Stephen Chow who is in both of those movies, wrote those movies, and directed those movies, and he is hilarious. He is one of the most funny guys you've ever seen. He always plays an underdog that, wins in the end in these movies. And the comedy is just gold. And they're kid friendly. They are children friendly if they can read. And some of them are, English dubbed over. And they are fantastic. And I definitely think you need to watch this, and there is a little rumor that they will be making a Kung Fu Hustle 2, so watch out for that. But let's talk about a few of the other ones that he's done that, of course, he stars, directs, and has written in, and that is King of Comedy and God of Cookery. Now, these movies are ridiculous on another level. Now, I realize that the comedy movies that we see in America are mostly just kind of raunchy, a little edgy and aggressive, and I love those kinds of movies, don't get me wrong, but there's something about these Chinese comedy movies that are just so good. They're also all different types of Asian comedy movies, and they use similar tactics when it comes to the comedy that they do, and they are all so funny. So I definitely go check out that kind of comedy if you're looking for something different but also something funny, because it's more lighthearted, more funny, and just over the top, like absolutely over the top. Kung Fu Hustle literally has a woman that can just, the running is ridiculous. They run, and it's like they're running like cartoons. It's almost like cartoon-esque, I would say. Now, Stephen Chow has directed, written, and starred in all of these movies, and I really hope, to see more from him. He's also been in a lot of other movies, but these are the ones that I enjoy probably the most out of them, at least the ones I could find that I've enjoyed at least multiple times from him. And Kung Fu Hustle is number one. Absolutely number one. Shaolin Soccer is great too. I definitely think if you're going to watch them in order, there's not an order to them, but start with Kung Fu Hustle, because that'll kind of ease you into the rest of them, because Kung Fu Hustle is the most ridiculous, but also probably the most popular. And then Shaolin Soccer is probably second to that. After that, King of Comedy and God of Cookery are about the same. He's always trying to find some sort of love interest, but he's really dopey in a way and really funny. He's always plays this underdog that's, gonna win in the end, and they're just so good. And when you watch these movies, you'll kind of notice that he stars the same people in all of these different movies. So you'll see people from, one movie that are also in the other one, and they're always playing something similar or completely different, and they're just so good. I definitely recommend that you check these out, because they are some of the funniest comedy movies that you'll ever see. And it really does take a twist and turn on the comedy that you're used to, and really bring back this like childlike, cartoon-like comedy, but in, with real people. I mean, Shaolin Soccer, they're playing soccer, but it's like soccer with cartoon character abilities, and it's these little things that really push it over the edge to make it so good. I don't know how else to say it, but they are just some of the funniest things that you will ever see, honestly. Now, I'm really big into movies over the seas and movies that come from other places, because I've seen it all when it comes to here. At this point, we're kind of just remaking movies here and there. So I love movies that come from different countries and whatnot, that I can look at and find a different sense of happiness from, if that makes sense. It's just not the same thing that I'm seeing in every movie. I'm not seeing the same actors. I'm not seeing the same stories. I'm seeing different takes on similar stories, but I'm seeing different takes on comedy when it comes to this. It's not just slapstick, and it's not just, it's not raunchy or any of that. I'm just getting pure, I'm gonna laugh the entire time that I'm watching this. Now, I'm gonna talk about some animated movies that I really enjoy, that I think you guys would enjoy, that are a pretty obscure, but also super awesome. Honestly, pretty obscure, but awesome. I really want to bring in a movie that I saw probably a year or so ago, and I loved it. Now, this is an animated movie, and it was originally in French, and now it is in English, and it is definitely a kids' movie. This movie is called A Monster in Paris, and it is so good. It's cute, it's sweet, it's funny, but it's also something that I don't think a lot of people have seen, and I really suggest you see it, because it's so cute, and it's got a story that's real strange and something you've never really heard of before. It's definitely a story that will entice you, but also be something that's not the same thing you're seeing in everything. There's a woman singer, and she meets a monster, and a funny man. And it's kind of, I don't know, it's just, I don't know how to explain it without really giving away what it is, but it is one of the coolest movies, weirdest movies, and I definitely think you should find this movie and watch it. And it is kid-friendly. This movie is definitely kid-friendly and definitely something fun and interesting that you can watch. And it's different. That's what I'm getting apart. These are weird movies. It is weird. It is strange. It is different. But I want you to take from this just in general that, I want you to take these movie things, because they are weird movies. They're very strange. A lot of them are real weird. But I want you to be able to take these movies, watch them, and still get enjoyment out of something that's really strange and something you haven't seen before. And then you can pass it along to friends or family or whatnot. Please. That's what I'm trying to get out of this. Now, I'm going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to talk about some animated movies that are really strange, but also some of the best animated movies I've ever seen. Weird movies, strange movies, animated, and we'll talk about it after the break.
The GSMC Life and Happiness podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Hello, and welcome back to the GSMC Weird News Podcast. Now, before the break, we were talking about weird movies that I like, that I think you guys should like, and I was talking specifically about some Chinese comedy movies that I think you guys would love, and also about a French animated movie that I think you guys would love. Now, on the topic of weird animated movies, let me not just say anime, that's two different things, but some weird animated movies that I enjoy thoroughly. We'll start with one that actually a lot of people have seen, and this was a very popular movie, and I had totally forgotten this thing existed, or what it was about, pretty much, since I hadn't seen it since I was a child, and my husband was like, oh, I gotta find this movie, and we went looking for this, and we could not find it. And finally, about maybe 2 or 3 months ago, we found this movie, and we rented it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is weird. Like, it's very weird, but very real. And I'm so glad that he remembered it. So this is Cats Don't Dance. This is not a movie from overseas. This is a movie from America. When I'm saying overseas, I mean anywhere that's not in the US, because I am in the US. But this movie is phenomenal. This is a hidden gem. I remember this movie, like bits and pieces of this movie, but when we went to watch it, I realized that it's really about how hard it is in the film business, and how kind of uppity, I guess, the film industry is as a whole. It's about a cat who's trying to live his dream as an actor, and, you know, he goes to Hollywood, and then he's having all the issues that, you know, anybody trying to be a famous actor, or honestly just trying to be in film in general, have. Now, I watched this as a kid, and I loved this movie, but as an adult, I think this movie is even weirder, because it is animals portraying these feelings that I've definitely felt from trying to get, you know, into an industry in general, and the fact that it was specific industry to me, but not the same career, I still felt really close to it. And I think as an adult, you should go back and watch this movie. And you could also watch it with your kids, which is great. but it's definitely weird when I guess more weird when you're watching it as an adult, because it is really heavy in the how hard getting into something is, getting into an industry is, and, you know, the secrets behind closed doors. Now, let's move away and go to an actual anime movie, which is Japanese animated film. Now, this movie is pretty old, but it is probably one of the strangest movies, and it is not kid friendly. This is not a kid's okay to watch anime friendly. This is a little more on the creepier side. There's nothing, I guess a kid could watch it, but it's a little more brutal than, you know, I would recommend. It's Akira. Now, this movie you have to watch more than once. This is one of those you have to watch more than once because it is so strange, and the story takes such a turn that you're really confused, and there are babies that use mind control and stuff, and it is just so weird. I can't even describe it. But this is a very, very popular anime movie, and it is pretty old, but it is worth a watch if you're looking for something weird. If you're looking for something absolutely weird, Akira is the way to go. After watching it a few times, and I've actually read up about it because I was, you know, thoroughly confused, but also curious, it makes a lot more sense to me now, but it's a good movie, a good watch in and of itself. Oh, am I burping over here? I don't even know. But this is probably one of my favorites. One of my favorite anime movies, along with Ghost in the Shell, which is also a very strange movie, but not as strange as Akira. And I'm talking about the anime Ghost in the Shell, not the live action Ghost in the Shell, which we did talk about earlier on in this, but this is one of the weirdest watches you will ever have. This is one of the weirdest movies you will watch, I promise you. But I think it's definitely worth a watch. One of my absolutely favorite worth a watch. Now, I want to talk about a more recent film that has come out that I've watched and I am in love with. This is definitely more on the kid-friendly side, but it is just, oh god, it is stunning to watch, really confusing, really strange, but so cute at the same time. This is another anime movie, and it's called The Napping Princess. Now, this is a sweet movie, a really good movie, but it has the weirdest turns and twists because half the time you're in her dreamland and half the time you're in the real world. And it kind of gets jumbled, but it's really strange because it's not like dream world, real world, like Inception type thing. No, this is very, very on the, you know, you dream and things are all over the place kind of thing. It's not like Inception at all. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not Inception. It's a completely different movie. It's very kid friendly. It's so sweet and also just really strange, and you might have to watch it more than once. I mean, I kind of understood it at the end, but I have watched it more than once because I loved this movie, and it is strange. It's strange, but it does make sense if you just kind of pay attention, and it is so, so, so incredibly cute. One of my all-time favorite movies, hands down. So before I end this, I want to just give you a few movies that I recommend that are weird, probably not as weird. I mean, they're all pretty strange, but these movies I really like, and they're some of my absolute top favorite forever movies that I'll watch a million times. So let's start with Painted Skin. Painted Skin is, I believe, a Chinese movie, and it is really strange. I believe it has Donnie Yen in it, it was just amazing. It's really weird, but it's really good. I really recommend Painted Skin. Another one that I really recommend is What We Do in the Shadows. You've probably heard of the show What We Do in the Shadows. That's good, but the original movie that sparked the show, which has Taika Waititi and one of the guys from Flight of the Conchords in it, and it is literally a mockumentary about vampires where they're making fun of, like, it's a comedy about vampires where they're following vampires around like a documentary crew, and it is one of the funniest and strangest movies. I've watched the movie 1,000,000 times, and I'll watch it 1,000,000 more times. One of the best weird movies I've ever seen. The Boy and the Beast, which is an animated movie, super sweet, definitely good for children. It is strange, but it's not as strange as some of the other ones, that's why I didn't include it in there. And then let's talk Hayao Miyazaki. He makes my favorite movies ever. I have every movie Hayao Miyazaki has ever made, and I am a huge fan, and they are all phenomenal. My favorite ones, probably top favorite ones, they're all strange in their own right because they're very fantasy and out there, and I really enjoy them. There are a few that aren't so fantasy, but they still bring that fantasy element to them, and I just love everything that he's ever made, and his movies are my favorite. I think some of my favorite ones that I definitely recommend are Nausicaa, the Valley of the Wind is my favorite. It was one of his first ones and one of the absolute best. Howl's Moving Castle, Spirited Away, Porco Rosso, which he says is actually not for children and more for adults, and I can see how that is, but it definitely was misconstrued because the man is a pig. It's a good movie. I know, this all sounds so weird, and I know that it probably is, but I really want you to check out basically everything Hayao Miyazaki has done. I want you to check out all of these movies if you get a chance, because they are so good and so weird. I could give you a bunch of movies that I don't recommend, but I'd rather give you a bunch of movies that I recommend that are strange. These are movies that probably most people haven't seen, that are worth a watch, that are just odd and out there, and I don't know, they're great. They're all great. I just wanted to let you know, I wanted to talk about some weird movies that I like. I also wanted to give you some weird movie facts in the beginning of this, and I want to thank you. That's what I want to do. I want to thank you for listening to this Weird News podcast, and just thank you for being great. If you like listening to me, I am also one of the hosts on the Beauty Tips, GSMC Beauty Tips podcast that's on here. So if you're into beauty, you could also check me out there if you like to listen to me. We also have another host who's fantastic on that as well. If you have seen any of these movies or are going to go watch these movies because I talked about them, let me know on our Twitter or our Facebook or wherever. We are GSMC_Weird News, and I am completely active on there. I want to talk to you guys. I want to be active with you guys. Let me know what you think. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Weird News podcast. I'm Colleen, and I will see you in the next one.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.